I never imagined that grief could be weaponized against me. After receiving that devastating phone call about Amanda's fatal car accident, I spent 3 days in absolute agony before discovering the sickening truth. Her family had orchestrated the entire thing. The police notification, the funeral arrangements, even the grief counselor who called me. All to test if I truly loved their daughter. Now, a year later, they stand at my door begging forgiveness, claiming it was just a misguided act of love. Before I tell you how this twisted loyalty test destroyed multiple lives, let me know where you are watching from. Hit that like button and subscribe if you have ever dealt with toxic in-laws who took family manipulation to unimaginable extremes. I met Amanda Cooper 5 years ago at a charity fundraiser in Boston. I was 31, working as an architectural engineer at a respected firm, and had been single for nearly 2 years after ending a long-term relationship that was going nowhere. Amanda was 28, a pediatric nurse, with an infectious laugh and the kind of genuine compassion that made everyone around her feel valued and understood. "You keep staring at that model of the children's hospital wing," she said, approaching me with 2 glasses of champagne. "Are you analyzing the structural integrity or just appreciating the design?" I smiled, accepting the offered glass. "A bit of both. I actually worked on the initial drafts for that project before it went to another firm." That first conversation flowed effortlessly for nearly 2 hours. By the end of the night, we had exchanged numbers and made plans for dinner the following weekend. 3 months later, we were officially a couple, and I was falling harder than I ever had before. Amanda was everything I had hoped to find in a partner. Intelligent, kind, passionate about her work, and surprisingly adventurous, despite her quiet demeanor. She loved hiking on weekends, trying exotic foods, and had an ambitious bucket list of countries she wanted to visit. We complemented each other perfectly. My methodical, sometimes overly analytical approach to life balanced her spontaneous nature, while her emotional intelligence helped me connect more deeply with others. The only cloud in our otherwise perfect relationship was Amanda's family. The Coopers were what some might call old money, wealthy for generations, deeply conservative, and fiercely protective of their lineage and reputation. Richard Cooper, Amanda's father, was a cardiovascular surgeon with connections throughout Boston's elite medical community. Catherine Cooper, her mother, managed their considerable family foundation and maintained their social standing with military precision. From our very first meeting at their Beacon Hill brownstone, I sensed their reservations about me. Though they were unfailingly polite, their questions felt more like an interrogation than friendly conversation. "And your parents, Johnny? What line of work are they in?" Catherine had asked over dinner. "My father was a construction foreman," I replied honestly. "He passed away when I was in college. My mother teaches high school English in Chicago." "Public school," Richard clarified his expression, carefully neutral. "Yes, sir. For almost 30 years now." There was nothing overtly rude in their responses, just a subtle cooling of interest, a slight redirection of conversation toward topics that excluded me. Later that night, Amanda apologized for their behavior. "They can be a bit stuck in their ways," she explained, as we drove back to my apartment. "But they will come around once they get to know you better. They just want to make sure I am with someone who will take care of me." "I understand," I assured her, though privately, I wondered if they would ever truly accept someone whose background differed so significantly from their own. Amanda had one sibling, an older brother named Christopher, who seemed to have inherited all of his parents' prejudices with none of their social graces. An investment banker with a permanent scowl, Christopher made no effort to hide his disdain for my middle-class upbringing. "So, you draw buildings for a living," he had commented during a family barbecue, swirling expensive bourbon in a crystal tumbler. "Must be nice to have such a simple career path." "I design structures that keep thousands of people safe every day," I had replied calmly. "There is nothing simple about it." Despite these tensions, Amanda and I grew closer. We moved in together, after a year of dating, finding a comfortable apartment halfway between her hospital and my office. Our life together was filled with small joys: cooking dinner together after long workdays, weekend trips to the New England coastline, lazy Sunday mornings, reading the newspaper in bed. By our second anniversary, I was certain Amanda was the woman I wanted to spend my life with. I spent months designing a custom engagement ring with a local jeweler, a sapphire surrounded by small diamonds matching the blue of Amanda's eyes. I planned a proposal during our upcoming vacation to the California coast, a trip we had been saving for all year. 2 weeks before our departure, I made the mistake of asking Richard Cooper for his blessing. I had debated whether to observe this tradition knowing Richard's lukewarm feelings toward me. But Amanda valued family and I wanted to start our engagement on the right foot. Richard received me in his wood-paneled study, listening to my earnest speech about loving his daughter and wanting to build a life with her. When I finished, he remained silent for a long moment. "Johnny," he finally said, "I appreciate your intentions. Amanda seems happy with you. But I wonder if you have truly considered the practical aspects of marriage. Amanda was raised with certain expectations, certain comforts. Your current position, while respectable, may not provide the lifestyle she has grown accustomed to." My face burned with humiliation, but I maintained my composure. "Sir, I earn a very good living. We may not live in Beacon Hill, but we will never want for anything. More importantly, we will have a home filled with love and mutual respect." Richard nodded, though his expression remained unconvinced. Love is important, certainly, but in my experience it rarely survives financial strain. However, if Amanda accepts your proposal, you will have our support. It was hardly the enthusiastic blessing I had hoped for, but it was enough. I left the Cooper household that evening determined to prove myself worthy of their daughter, even as a voice in the back of my mind whispered that I should not have to. Amanda accepted my proposal on a cliffside, overlooking the Pacific Ocean, tears streaming down her face as I presented the ring I had so carefully designed. "It is perfect," she whispered, as I slid it onto her finger. "You are perfect." The weeks following our engagement were a whirlwind of celebration and planning. Amanda's mother immediately took charge of the wedding arrangements, booking a historic Boston venue for a date 18 months in the future, giving us time to plan what she called a proper Cooper wedding. I went along with most of their suggestions, wanting Amanda to have the day she deserved, but I noticed a troubling pattern emerging. With each passing week, Catherine and Richard seemed to be inserting themselves more and more into our relationship. They questioned our decision to wait before having children, criticized the neighborhood we lived in, and repeatedly suggested I consider a position at a more prestigious firm, perhaps one where Richard had connections. "They mean well," Amanda would say, whenever I expressed frustration. "They just want what is best for us. But do they know what that is better than we do?" I would counter. "We are adults, Amanda. We should make our own choices." These minor disagreements never escalated into serious fights, but they created an undercurrent of tension. I began to wonder if marriage to Amanda meant accepting her family's constant presence in our decision-making for the rest of our lives. 6 months after our engagement, Amanda received a job offer from a prestigious children's hospital in Seattle. It was an incredible opportunity. Higher pay, more responsibility, and the chance to work with leading researchers in pediatric care. I fully supported her accepting the position and began researching architectural firms in Seattle where I might find comparable work. The Coopers were horrified at the prospect of their daughter moving across the country. "Your whole life is here," Catherine insisted during a tense dinner at their home. "Your family, your friends, your connections. Why would you throw that away?" "Because it is an amazing professional opportunity," Amanda replied, showing rare defiance against her parents. "Johnny and I are excited for the adventure. We can build a beautiful life in Seattle." "And what about Johnny's career?" Richard asked, turning his piercing gaze toward me. "Will you find comparable work there, or will Amanda be supporting you?" "I have several promising leads," I answered truthfully. "Seattle has a booming construction industry. My skills are in demand there." The conversation devolved from there, with Christopher suggesting that Amanda was making a terrible mistake, Catherine tearfully lamenting the distance, and Richard questioning whether we were mature enough to make such a significant life change. That night marked a turning point in Amanda's relationship with her family. For the first time, she saw clearly how controlling they could be, how unwilling to accept that she was building a life separate from theirs. "I am sorry," she said as we drove home. "I never realized how suffocating they can be. We are moving to Seattle. We will build our life together, on our terms." The following weeks brought increasingly desperate attempts from the Coopers to change our minds. They offered to help us buy a house in Boston, suggested positions for Amanda at hospitals where Richard had influence, and even tried to convince me that Amanda was only accepting the Seattle position to please me. Despite the pressure, we moved forward with our plans. Amanda accepted the position, giving her current hospital 2 months' notice. I secured a promising job interview with a Seattle firm known for innovative, sustainable design. We began packing our apartment and researching neighborhoods in our new city. Then came the day that changed everything. I was in a meeting with clients when my phone began vibrating repeatedly in my pocket. Excusing myself to check, I found 17 missed calls. From Amanda's parents, her brother, and numbers I did not recognize. My heart racing with sudden fear, I stepped into the hallway and called Richard back. "Johnny," he answered, his voice cracking with what sounded like genuine grief. "There has been an accident. Amanda's car. A truck driver fell asleep at the wheel on the highway. She is gone, son. Amanda is gone." The world tilted sideways. My legs gave out, and I found myself sitting on the floor of the hallway, dimly aware of concerned colleagues gathering around me. Richard was still speaking something about coming to their house, about arrangements that needed to be made, but his words washed over me like meaningless noise. Amanda could not be gone. We had spoken just that morning, making plans for the weekend, discussing what to pack first for our move. She had kissed me goodbye at the door, her lips tasting of coffee and the blueberry muffin she had been eating. Somehow I made it to the Cooper's house. The next 72 hours passed in a fog of grief, so thick I could barely breathe. Catherine was bedridden, sedated by her doctor husband. Christopher handled the practical arrangements with grim efficiency. Richard moved through his home like a ghost, accepting condolences from the stream of visitors who came to pay their respects. I stayed in Amanda's childhood bedroom, surrounded by remnants of her past: cheerleading trophies, medical school textbooks, photos of a life before me. I clutched her pillow at night, breathing in the faint scent of her shampoo that still lingered on the fabric, and tried to imagine a future without her. On the third day, as I sat numbly in Richard's study, reviewing options for funeral arrangements, my phone rang. The caller ID showed Amanda's name. I stared at the screen, convinced I was hallucinating from grief and lack of sleep. Then with trembling fingers I answered. Johnny, Amanda's voice, unmistakably her voice, came through the speaker. "Johnny, please do not hang up. I am okay. I am alive. This is going to sound crazy, but you need to get away from my parents right now. Do not let them know we have spoken. Can you do that?" I could not speak. My throat had closed completely, my mind unable to process what I was hearing. "Johnny, please," she continued, her voice urgent. "I know this is insane, but my parents faked my death. They staged the entire thing. The accident, everything. It was a test to see if you truly loved me, to see if you would still move to Seattle without me. I only found out yesterday when they came to the cabin where they have been keeping me and told me you had passed their test that you were so devastated you had agreed to stay in Boston permanently." "What?" I finally managed the single word, barely audible. "I know it sounds impossible," Amanda said, her voice breaking, "but I swear it is true. They hired actors to play police officers. They bribed someone at the hospital to confirm my death. If anyone checked, they even hired a grief counselor to monitor your reactions. My father has connections everywhere. Please, Johnny, you need to get out of there before they realize I have escaped and called you." In that moment, the study door opened. Richard Cooper stood in the doorway, his expression changing from grief to shock to cold calculation as he registered the phone in my hand and the look of dawning comprehension on my face. "Who are you speaking to, Johnny?" he asked, his voice dangerously calm. "Your daughter," I replied, standing up slowly. "Your very much alive daughter." The next few hours were a blur of confrontation and revelation. Catherine, summoned by her husband, collapsed dramatically when she saw me holding the phone with Amanda still on the line. Christopher arrived shortly after, his face contorted with fury, not at his parents' deception, but at Amanda's betrayal of their plan. The story they eventually confessed to was so twisted, so manipulative, that I could barely comprehend the minds that conceived it. Unwilling to accept our move to Seattle but unable to stop us directly, they had constructed an elaborate scheme to test my commitment to Amanda and their family. The accident had been entirely fabricated. The police officers who notified me were actors hired through a connection of Richard's from a medical drama filmed in Boston. The grief counselor who called daily to check on me was monitoring my reactions, reporting back to the Coopers whether my grief seemed genuine, whether I mentioned continuing with the Seattle plans despite Amanda's death. Amanda had been told she was participating in a surprise for me, a pre-wedding celebration that required her to stay at the family's remote cabin in Vermont for a few days. Only after 3 days of isolation did they reveal their true plan, expecting her to be touched by their extreme measures to ensure my worthiness as her husband. Instead, she was horrified. The moment they left the cabin, she broke a window, hiked to the nearest main road, and borrowed a phone from a gas station attendant to call me. "We did it for your own good," Catherine insisted, tears streaming down her face. "We needed to know that Johnny truly loved you for yourself, not for what you could provide him with your new position." "You needed to be sure he would not leave Boston, you mean," Amanda replied, her voice coming through the phone speaker with cold fury. "You manipulated both of us in the cruelest way imaginable, and you expect us to thank you. You were making a terrible mistake." Richard countered, his authoritative manner faltering in the face of our combined anger. "Seattle would have been a disaster. You would have been isolated away from your support system, relying solely on Johnny. We needed to know he was worthy of that trust." "And am I?" I asked, my voice eerily calm despite the rage and betrayal churning inside me. "Did I pass your sick test?" Christopher snorted. "With flying colors. You have been pathetic these past 3 days. Crying constantly, talking to her photos, telling everyone how you wished you could trade places with her." "Enough," Richard snapped at his son. "Johnny, yes, you proved your devotion, and now we can all move forward together as a family. Amanda will take the position at Massachusetts General that I arranged. You can continue at your firm, and we can have the wedding as planned. This unpleasantness will be our secret." I looked at Richard Cooper, distinguished surgeon, respected community leader, and apparent sociopath, and felt nothing but disgust. "You think we would stay after this? You think Amanda would ever trust you again?" "We are her family," Catherine said, as if that explained and excused everything. "Family forgives." I ended the call with Amanda, after confirming which hotel she would meet me at. Without another word to the Coopers, I packed my few belongings and walked out of their house for what I believed would be the final time. Amanda and I spent that night holding each other in a hotel room, alternating between tears, rage, and disbelieving laughter at the sheer insanity of what her family had done. By morning, we had made our decision. We would accelerate our plans to move to Seattle, cutting all contact with the Coopers indefinitely. The following weeks were chaotic. Amanda had to deal with the bizarre administrative nightmare of proving she was not in fact dead. We both needed intensive therapy to process the trauma. Our move to Seattle happened in a rush, both of us desperate to put as much physical distance as possible between ourselves and Boston. For 6 months, we built our new life together on the West Coast. Amanda thrived at her new hospital position. I secured a job with the firm I had interviewed with before the accident. We found a charming craftsman house to rent in a neighborhood filled with young professionals. Slowly, we began to heal. Then the letters started arriving. Handwritten pages from Catherine begging for forgiveness. Emails from Richard, alternating between apologies and justifications for their actions. Even Christopher sent a terse note acknowledging they had perhaps gone too far. We ignored them all. On our wedding day, a simple ceremony on a Seattle beach with only my mother and our new friends present, we felt free of the Coopers' toxic influence at last. That freedom lasted exactly 1 year. On our first anniversary, the doorbell rang. Standing on our porch were Richard and Catherine Cooper, looking older and somehow diminished without their Boston finery and social armor. "Please," Catherine said before I could close the door in her face. "5 minutes. That is all we ask. Against my better judgment, I allowed them into our home. Amanda was at work, and part of me wanted to hear what possible explanation they could offer without her present to remind them of the pain they had caused. "Your home is lovely," Catherine offered, looking around our living room with its simple, comfortable furnishings and wall of windows overlooking Puget Sound. "What do you want?" I asked, remaining standing, while they perched awkwardly on our couch. Richard cleared his throat. "We have come to apologize, Johnny. What we did was unforgivable. We see that now. The past year without Amanda in our lives has been enlightening." "Enlightening," I repeated flatly. "That is one word for it." "We destroyed our relationship with our only daughter," Catherine said, tears filling her eyes. "We have lost friends in Boston as word got out about what we did. Richard's practice has suffered. Christopher's wife has filed for divorce partly because of his role in our mistake." "You call it a mistake," I said. "I call it psychological torture. You made me believe the woman I love was dead. You watched me grieve for 3 days. You planned to manipulate us into living the life you wanted for us by fabricating the most traumatic experience imaginable." "We know," Richard said quietly. "There is no justification. At the time, we truly believed we were protecting Amanda. We thought Seattle was a mistake, that you might be using her for her new position and salary. We were wrong about everything." "We miss her terribly," Catherine added. "We miss you too, Johnny. You were good for her in ways we were too blind to see." I studied them carefully. They seemed genuinely remorseful, their usual confidence and authority replaced by something approaching humility. But I had seen Richard Cooper's acting abilities before, when he played the grieving father so convincingly that I never questioned the reality of Amanda's death. "Amanda will be home in an hour," I said finally. "It will be her decision whether you stay or leave immediately. I will not influence her either way." The tension, when Amanda walked through the door and saw her parents sitting in our living room, was palpable. She froze in the entryway, her face draining of color, her hand instinctively reaching for mine as I moved to her side. "What are they doing here?" she whispered. "They want to apologize," I explained. "I told them it was your decision whether they stay or go." For the next 2 hours, the 4 of us engaged in the most difficult conversation of my life. The Coopers laid bare their motivations, their fears, and their regrets. Amanda alternated between cold silence and explosive anger, as years of controlled resentment finally found release. "Do you have any idea what you did to us?" she demanded. "I have nightmares about being trapped in that cabin. Johnny still wakes up in a cold sweat, convinced I have disappeared. We both see therapists twice a week to deal with the trust issues you created. We were wrong." Richard admitted his medical authority completely abandoned. "Terribly, unforgivably wrong." "Then why ask for forgiveness?" Amanda challenged. "Because you are our daughter," Catherine said simply, "and we have realized too late that loving you means accepting your choices, your independence, and the life you have built with Johnny." By the end of the evening, no resolution had been reached. Amanda asked her parents to leave, promising only that she would consider what they had said and contact them when she felt ready. That night, as we lay in bed discussing the surreal encounter, Amanda turned to me with confusion in her eyes. "Should I forgive them?" she asked. "Can people change that fundamentally?" I stroked her hair gently. "I do not know love. I only know that you do not owe them forgiveness. And whatever you decide, I will support you completely." A week passed then, too. Amanda and I discussed the situation endlessly, weighing the possibility of reconciliation against the risk of allowing toxic influences back into our lives. The Coopers remained in Seattle, sending a single message to let us know they had rented an apartment and would stay as long as necessary, hoping for another chance to speak with us. Finally, Amanda made her decision. She would meet with her parents again, this time on neutral ground, a public park where she would feel safe and in control. I offered to accompany her, but she wanted to face them alone first. She returned from that meeting with mixed emotions. Her parents had continued their apologies, but had also proposed something unexpected: family therapy, with a renowned psychologist who specialized in family trauma. They were willing to commit to a year of intensive sessions, flying to Seattle monthly if necessary to rebuild what they had destroyed. Part of me wants to tell them to go to hell, Amanda confessed. But another part wonders if people who can recognize their mistakes so completely might deserve a second chance. The journey since then has been neither simple nor linear. We agreed to the family therapy, setting strict boundaries and clear consequences should the Coopers ever again attempt to control or manipulate us. Richard took a sabbatical from his practice to focus on the therapeutic process. Catherine began volunteering with organizations helping families affected by controlling relationships. As for Christopher, he has remained largely absent from the reconciliation attempts, still angry that his parents' scheme ultimately backfired and caused consequences in his own life. His divorce was finalized, his wife having been horrified by his participation in the deception. 1 year has passed since the Coopers reappeared on our doorstep. The family we have rebuilt bears little resemblance to what existed before. Amanda and I maintain our independence, fiercely sharing our lives with her parents, only on our terms. Richard and Catherine have learned painfully but genuinely that respect and acceptance are the only foundation for healthy family bonds. The scars remain. There are still nights when I wake suddenly reaching for Amanda to confirm she is really there. There are still family gatherings where a casual comment can trigger memories of betrayal. But there is also healing understanding and a cautious rebuilding of trust. If there is a lesson in this twisted tale, perhaps it is that true love cannot be tested through manipulation and control. It can only be nurtured through respect, honesty, and the courage to allow those we love the freedom to make their own choices, even when we fear those choices may take them away from us. Have you ever experienced toxic family dynamics that tested the boundaries of forgiveness? Could you rebuild trust with someone who betrayed you so fundamentally? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe to hear more stories about navigating complex family relationships. For those dealing with controlling family members, I hope our journey offers some perspective. Boundaries are essential. Forgiveness is optional, and your well-being must always come first. Thank you for listening. And remember that the family we choose can sometimes be more important than the family we are born into.